Good afternoon. My name is Chaz Henry, and I am the CEO of PowerChalk.com. I'm joined today by football coach Bill Renner. Bill, are you with us?
Yes, sir.
Coaches, BillRennerFootball.com is a site where you can learn to play and learn to coach. Bill has coached at every level in every role, but his passions are kicking and quarterbacking. Bill's son, Bill Renner, is the starting quarterback for the school that my son is headed to in the fall, the UNC Tar Heels. Bill, I've been on your site. Your site, the Bill Renner football site and your YouTube site is just absolutely packed with video and books. I just watched the trailer for the 5-wide offense, and I understand there's a 200-page book and a 10 DVD set. What are you doing up there in your spare time?
Oh, well, trying to coach a little football. I'm retiring from teaching this year, so I'll be doing this kind of stuff year-round. But, yeah, I've had a successful offense. My son contributed to that, obviously. But looking forward to just helping coaches and players with the kicking and punting and quarterback and even offensive stuff. That's what I'm going to be doing here in the near future.
Folks, Bill is also available for coaching lessons at PowerChalk.com/Bill Renner. That's Renner with 2 R's, 2 E's, and 2 N's. You can submit a video there and get a remote lesson right there on the page. So given that, Bill, let's talk kicking. Actually, what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn the screen over to you, and let's have you take us through a scenario where in fact you show us how you would get a remote lesson for, in this case, a place kicker.
Okay. What we do, this young man that you see on the screen was a soccer player at our school at East Chapel Hill, and he came, wanted to kick, and so I've only had him for about a year, but I started working with him. He's headed to West Virginia as a walk-on, and so I want to walk you through the 6 phases of the kick that I look for, and then kind of show you a few of the details that we deal with him in that respect. So here, the first phase is stance, and I'm going to go through these and show you. In the stance, what we're looking for is we want him to be nice and tall and have an athletic position. An athletic position is when his shoulders, knees, and toes are lined up. So if we drop a line straight down his knees and his toes, you'll see that he's nice and tall. And we like to have his shoulders nice and tall so that when he picks his feet up and down, they're like pistons. So in the stance, we're looking at that. The other thing that's really important that people sometimes don't coach is that I want his eyes focused on the ball right away. So in this first position, just 2 generic things that I'm going to get him in is a great stance to start, and then also make sure his eyes are on the ball right away because they have a tendency to wander. Their eyes have a tendency to wander when they're coming in. The other thing that we like to do is we like to have about 80% of the weight in his foot. A kicker has to go from 0 to 60, so to speak, really fast. He has about 2.5 yards to get there. And so we've got to load his stance up and get him in the right position so when he pushes off that foot, that he has his energy and his body momentum can go from 0 to 60. The second thing that we evaluate him on is what I call the burst step. We have to make sure that in this phase also he hasn't given up his athletic position, that his shoulders, knees, and toes are lined up again. And as you can see, Kieran's doing that. Going back to the second thing that we looked at, his eyes are still on the ball. And then the same factor here is we want this toe loaded up now to basically when he picks his foot up, all his cleats and the ball of his foot are going to dig that turf out because this is what gets his body moving. And the leg speed is a direct result of body speed. The slower the body goes to the ball, the slower leg speed they have. And the slower leg speed they have, the less height and distance they're going to have on a punt. So
hey, let me stop you right there. Let me ask a question, Bill. You said he's actually going to, in golf I was told, hit the little ball first, meaning don't hit the earth.
Right.
You're saying here he is actually going to hit the ground before he hits the ball?
No. He's not going to hit the ground before he hits the ball. What I was saying is he's going to take his second step, his burst step, he's going to load up. Right here in this phase, he's going to load that up so that he can drive his body to the ball.
I'm with you. Okay.
Yeah. So it's real important here that they're like any other position that's going to propel his body to make a tackle, go backwards, and we've got to have enough energy in this foot to take this energy that we started with the first push and create even more acceleration to the ball with his body, so that when we get to this third position, this load position, what we're looking for here is we're looking for his leg. What we'd like to see is we'd like to see his heel bend his knee so that his heel is as close to his butt cheek as possible. It never gets to the point where it's going to touch, but we want to load that leg up so that that knee is bent. And what that does is that forces an eccentric contraction in the thigh so that when he's going to snap his knee down, it's a really powerful snap. But once again, the common theme is how about his athletic position? He's nice and tall. He's going to slide his knee over his toe in this position. As you can see it come back over his toe. But when he gets to this load position, now it's paramount that he's in what I call the squat, clean, and deadlift position. And all the coaches that have had to teach this in the weight room understand that that's when you've got to lock this chest in and lock this lower back in so that there's a curve here. So we've got a little curve in his chest right there. So now I know that his hips are going to be engaged when he makes a swing at the ball. So it's real important that we watch that. Once again, see how great he stayed locked in and on the ball, so he's still looking at his spot. Then as he goes to the fourth position that we look at for him, and that's the load position or the ball striking position. The ball striking position, we're going back to balance. Shoulders over knees. He still his knees over toes. You see that his knee is now is going to slide forward. It's positioned to be able to strike the ball. We're looking at his foot. His foot. He's going to hit it with the top of his instep. We're also going to look at make sure that his knee is pointing straight at the target. One of the things that's consistent, whether you're hitting a baseball or a golf ball, is that kicker has to have his knee inside the ball. It has to stay inside the ball on his whole path. So as he's coming into this ball to kick it, his knee, if we were looking at the front view, would stay inside the whole time. And when he gets to ball striking position, he has to be what I call, say, tall behind the ball. One of the things that you'll see young people do is that their shoulders will be leaning forward. So they'll have this body lean, and they'll actually be looking backwards at the ball. And when that happens, then they can't explode up through the ball, and you'll see a kick that comes out really low and with no power. And so when they do that, I know right away that their body's out of position, that they're not tall and behind the ball. Right. You can see Kieran here is behind the ball.
It makes sense.
So,
hey, let me ask you. You talked about him being a soccer player prior to coming to the place kicking world. Obviously, that's got to help, but is this the same stroke? I mean, are there some things that you have to undo here for a good soccer player?
Yeah, it is not the same stroke. The carryover for them is the fact that they're pretty good with their eye, foot contact. They can see the ball and hit the ball well, but this is a more linear swing than you see a soccer player. So the thing we have to teach them is we have to teach them to make this descending and then ascending swing with his leg, because in soccer you have a rotational where your hips, once you strike the ball, you're rotating around more in a circle. Here it's a descending. I get to my lowest most point, and he's actually ascending when he hits the ball. So sometimes you will see, Chaz, as you mentioned, you'll see him hit the ground, and that's because he's going to bottom out right in front of the ball. So his lowest most point of his swing is going to occur here.
Right.
And then he's accelerating into the ball, and so what you see a soccer player, his swing would be rounder. It would stop and end up somewhere over on this frame, this height, as opposed to where you see Kieran's is. So this is a descending, ascending swing, and the soccer is more of a round swing. So we have to train them to be more linear with their swing when they go soccer style to place kicking.
Interesting. So he kind of scoops it out. Is a layman's way to look at it, I guess.
Yes, that's the way to say it. Then the other part that's really important is, notice that here in his follow-through, he's still in athletic position. So he still has his shoulder, knees, and toes. When we line that up, you can see that. And you know, the most important attribute that a guy can have is to be balanced in that athletic position and stay there all the way through his motion. If he does that, then he's going to have the same swing path the whole time. So a lot of times guys will say, well, Coach, you know a lot about kicking. What should I start coaching? And I said, well, coach him without the ball. You know, if you coach another sport and you don't understand this athletic position, just coach him initially without the ball and teach him to stay with his shoulders over his knees and his knees over his toes, and he will instantly make more consistent swings and he'll be a better ball striker. So when I start coaching them, I don't put the ball in. I coach them from their stance to this burst step right here, get them to this load position, and get them to their follow-through and get them to be balanced. And I know if I do that, I'll have a consistent leg swing path. And then from there, I can teach them to be elite because now I'm going to get the same leg swing. So whether you're teaching golf, you're teaching baseball, you're teaching somebody to throw something, that balance and posture is absolutely paramount, that they control that first before you ever have a chance to know if they're any good or not.
Well, you know, now that you say that, and I'm watching his stroke there, and I'm relating it to a goalie, you know, taking a goalie kick where you're really just clearing it down the field. Theirs is a much more sort of blunted, sort of a blocking type kick.
That's correct. Yes. It's
and it's kind of, I guess, kind of analogous to, you know, to blocking your driver. You really don't come around and finish. You just sort of block it through.
That's correct. And usually when you block a ball, you're getting to the ball and you're decelerating. So you get there and you don't swing to and through the ball. And kickers do that, and they have a tendency to do that when they're not focused on you know, taking their energy and driving it through the ball. So it's any transfer of energy skill, even blocking and tackling. You know, the biggest thing to do is keep a kid to have his feet keep running through the collision. And so it's no different than when you transfer energy from a foot to the ball there. So it's the same thing. You have to strike to and through the ball. The other thing that we're able to do is I'm able to take David Akers, who is on the right here on screen B, and I'm able to take Kieran, and I've got him synced up so that I can get him to the same position, this burst position, and so he can see where he's similar or dissimilar to David Akers here. You notice that
looks pretty good right there.
If we drop this line, he's bent over a little bit more, but he's still in athletic position. So sometimes people try to coach the perfect position, but it's not about the perfect position. It's about what's maybe unique to that person. But the common factor is both of them are in athletic position. So the split screen shows us that they're doing a common thing that both of them will allow them to kick the ball with maximum leg speed because their body's in the right position to transfer that energy. Then we take them to the load position, and you'll see that both of them, once again, they have a nice bend here. They've loaded their heel to their butt cheek. Now, when you do this, unless you look at it from the backside, the other thing that they should have is, because they're kicking soccer style, this heel is not actually behind his left cheek here. They're both left-footed kicker. It's actually rotated a little bit over to his right, and then that gives you the hip rotation to the ball. So the load not only consists of pulling your heel to your butt cheek, but it also consists of rotating your hip back so that there's some hip rotation, and that's the advantage of kicking soccer style as opposed to straight on where there is no hip rotation.
Right.
So, but you'll see once again that both of them are in a nice position to transfer the energy to the ball. Okay? Both of them are staring down at the ball. Both of them are in athletic position. So we've got two guys that look just a little different. David's upper body is not quite as locked out as Kieran's, but they're in that same position. Then if we take them to number 4 and compare them to number 4 at the ball striking, you'll see that now the key phrase here is they're both tall behind the ball. You see Kieran's behind the ball. You see David's even leaning back a little bit more. And so you might say, well, Coach, shouldn't we get him a little bit more upright? Well, you know, Kieran's only 17 in this picture, and David Akers is a Pro Bowl guy who's in his 30s, so he's a lot stronger. So he can hold this position with a little bit of lean back, and he can stay behind the ball a little longer. And that would be one of the things that Kieran would progress to. Right now, his core can hold it, has to hold him in this position, but eventually we'll get him to lean back a little bit more, and that'll give him a little bit more aggressiveness up and into the ball. But because there's a difference in strength right there, that's the thing that you know, you can see. You say, well, we got to either get Kieran like David or David like Kieran, and we don't have to because of the age difference and the strength capability difference.
Tell me about when we talk of football, you know, again, versus a soccer ball, obviously a whole different dynamics. What determines how high, how far, how fast, you know, that ball comes off the foot and where it goes?
The number one thing that determines how high and far it goes is the leg speed. And that's why they're being able to go from their stance and generally take 2 steps and do that really fast. how fast you can get your body going till you get to that ball, like they're doing right here from this burst step here. How fast their body's going it totally translates to their leg speed. And that leg speed is direct correlation to how high and how far the ball goes. What makes the ball go straight is the position of their knee and the position at ball strike. If their knee is inside the ball and they accelerate up through the ball, then that ball will stay straight as an arrow. That's one of the things when you teach young people, or even when you see a guy that's in a slump. If you remember the path that I showed you before, that for it to go straight, they have to go up through the ball. They can't rotate in this case, to their right. They can't fall off backward, forward, left, or right. And then that ball stays perfectly straight when they do that. The thing you should notice here is, notice how high David's leg has gotten. And notice how Kieran, at the same spot, how low his leg is. This, and the bend in his knee tells me that he has a little hamstring issue. He's not as flexible in his upper hamstring right here in his glute as he needs to be. The other thing it tells me is his leg will decelerate before David's. So when you have a nice flexible leg, which he has obviously over the years that he's been doing it, he can carry that body speed, hence leg swing speed, through the ball longer than Kieran can. So Kieran will not be able to be as adept at David as kicking a ball high and far, just because he's got to develop a swing that allows him to carry that speed through the ball longer. So you can see also when David strikes the ball, you see how fast his leg gets up. He's
right.
One of the most accurate kickers in the league and has been Pro Bowl for a while. And, 2 years ago, not this past year, he struggled a little bit with 49ers, but he was like 40. He made 43 field goals, and you can see why. I mean, he snaps and accelerates through the ball so aggressively, as opposed to when you're looking at Kieran. You see how slow he kind of gets through the ball?
Yes.
So, carrying the body speed to and through the ball gives you the leg speed that you need to kick the ball high and far, and then being able to keep the knee inside and accelerate straight up through it is paramount. Now, there's an analogy here, and I played baseball and understand, teaching baseball. And one of the things about baseball is when you hit the ball, at the end of the bat, you point at the pitcher, and it's absolutely the same thing with his foot. This foot needs to be pointing right at his target. So you can see as they finish in the follow-through, their foot is pointing right at their target, and that allows me to know that they stayed on that straight line and that the ball should have a straight flight path. So even if I didn't see that and I was coaching them online, I would know that ball probably went straight. So
you talk about the corollaries here, and it seems to me there are a lot of corollaries. I've heard it said that you don't hit the golf ball with your follow-through, but your follow-through, when you talked about lifting, and continuing to come up, it really is an indication of where you were at ball strike, and really, how your foot is, even though it's only on there for a fraction of a second, how your foot is affecting that path.
Yes, and yeah, it is. I think it's on there, your foot like 0.16 milliseconds or something in that nature. But when you come in square, whether you're striking a golf ball or you square up the ball in baseball or you get your foot square, it is that position is absolutely paramount to controlling the flight direction of that kick. The other thing that we really have to coach out of them, as I was pointing out in their follow through here, is I can tell by their finish. If you notice, they look almost identical. You see how this arm right here for Kieran is kind of hanging back to the side. You see David's is hanging back. Right. They did what I called fight to stay square. A lot of young people, when they get to ball contact and they get to ball strike, they'll start rotating around themselves. In fact, with the quarterbacks I work with, it's one of the big things in throwing is that front arm starts to rotate out instead of down, and so they have to fight to stay square here because as a soccer style kicker, their natural inclination is to swing around their body. So you have to teach them to finish and fight to stay square just like they are. This is not a natural position when you start teaching soccer style kickers to become place kickers.
Let
you
me
can
ask
see
you,
how he's leaning back and to do that. So
for an aspiring kicker, and you've got, and it seems like these guys are getting bigger by the day. You've got Janikowski, you've got these guys who look like they could kick it out of the stadium. What makes a great kicker? Is there a profile that you've got to have to be a great kicker?
The first physical element is you have to be a good ball striker. You can't make different leg swings from kick to kick. That's the first physical attribute, and that's why I talk about balance and posture. If you have that, then you have a chance to strike the ball consistently, and then we can know if you really have the ability to do it. The second factor is the mental part of it is you have to just take one ball at a time. You just have to be able to hit a ball, watch it fly. If you miss it, you have to be able to know how to fix it and move on. The physical goes first because obviously if you don't have the physical talent, you're just not going to have a chance to develop and play. But once you have the physical talent to strike a ball and fairly adeptly, then you have to be able to develop the calmness and coolness to know that you may hit 20 balls and go 17 out of 20, and that may not be good enough because you may miss the most important kick, and you got to move on from that. So those two attributes, you notice I didn't say anything about how big your leg is, how far you can kick the ball, because all those really are a direct result of those two factors, the physical factor of ball striking and the mental factor of being able to miss a kick and make your next one good. And those aren't just unique to kicking. That's a common denominator for any athlete in any sport, is you have to have physical attributes to do the skill, but then you better have the mental attributes when you fail to be able to push that off and succeed the next time. So it's the same as anything else that you're coaching. Is look for those two attributes.
Well, it is a position where you've got a really wide range of body types out there. You've got some small guys. You're never going to find a 5'8" lineman these days in pro football, but there's guys out there who are kicking the ball. So there's really hope for us mortals in this position.
It is, because it's a fine motor skill where precision of movement is much more important than gross or mass size. And there's not necessarily a correlation between Janikowski being big and him being able to hit the ball far, because David Akers tied the all-time record. And David Akers, right here on our screen, he's all of about 5'9", and probably weighs about $180. And so he hit a 63-yarder, and so did Janikowski. And the reason you can see it is just he's so fast with his legs. He's got fast feet. He has fast feet, and he's fast with his legs. He knows how to accelerate through a ball. It
really is analogous to pitching. You're talking about you really create a bunch of potential energy, and then you've got to translate it.
Exactly. It's baseball. I use baseball analogies all the time when I teach this, and it's all about being able to generate speed with your body and then keep that speed online and on target when you transfer it. And I picked David Akers. He's left-footed, but just been so impressed with how he's, you don't master anything, but how he's taken the skill of kicking and just made it something that he can repeat over and over again. And it's because what you see right here, when he snaps on the ball, it takes no time for him to get that thigh on the chest in what I call glide phase.
Right.
Glide phase is right here, and that's why his size is not a deterrent to him being successful or anybody else being successful.
Well, what else is interesting here is this footage. Obviously, you shot the previous footage, but this is maybe looks like something grabbed off of TV. There's a lot can be grabbed from fairly low res footage here. You really don't have to read the logo on his jersey to see where he's at these key positions.
I agree with you, and even now in the day of age where you can TiVo things and you can go on YouTube and get it, it's really invaluable for people trying to learn to coach the skill or perform the skill to do this. I know when I first started studying this whole process, I did my master's thesis in college on punting, but I used to set the VCR on Sunday games, and when the kickers came on or punters came on, or if it was an offensive play I wanted or something, I would just hit record. And so I've got probably 10 VHS tapes of 200-300 kicks like this, and punts like this that I chart. And I'd time their get off, I would time their hang times, I would time their approach, because what I wanted to do is I wanted to confirm what coaches were telling us. Okay, you had to get the ball off in a certain time. I wanted to watch leg swing paths. So the 6 areas that I gave you, those are kind of absolutes from a long time going through and saying, okay, if I can get a kid to be coached into these positions, then I know that he has a chance to be successful and be able to use whatever ability that God gave him there.
Well, you know, you talked about the old school knowledge. I know in the baseball world, some of what I've learned, you know, in my later years is completely contradictory to what I learned in high school. How much has that changed over time? What's the, you know, what's been the philosophy and what's changed over the years?
The training has changed tremendously. It used to be that the kickers didn't kick you around, and now they're so athletic. Their physical athletic ability has changed, but the training has changed. The league guys and even high school kids, they kick you around. So they get better quicker, and just like other positions. I mean, with 7-on-7 leagues, throwing and catching in high school now and college is just, it's off the chart compared to what it used to be because they do it year-round. So the training has changed year-round. The knowledge of people and the amount of people out there that are helping people kick and punt better has changed. So those two things have just made it a skill and an athletic movement that more people know about and more people can help people to be successful at.
Well, you know, it's funny, Bill. There's geeks at every level. So I guess you could say you're a kicking geek when you're, you know, when you've got 200 kicks on your VCR at home and you're charting hang times and you know, but this is certainly fascinating.
It's yeah, and I won't tell you how many offensive and defensive cut-ups I have either. So you'll know that I spend too much time on football. But, you know, it's been a passion. I've done football for 28 years, been a head coach for 23 years, so I've had to coach all the positions. But I've been fortunate that I know something about kicking and punting, and you know, now my goal is, having retired from actively coaching, just to be able to let coaches know that you can coach this like any position. You don't have to be afraid of it. And, Chaz, that's the one thing that hasn't changed in 30 years when I was doing it, you know, in high school or in college and even in the pros. Nobody really knows how to coach it, and they're afraid to coach it. So my mission is to let people know that if you can coach a sport, it doesn't even have to be football. If you know the techniques and your eyes are trained, you can coach it just as well as I can, as I did on this little preview here. And that's the message that I'm now, and this is my second career, want to get out there, is that there's absolutes. If you coach one thing, you can coach anything, and learn the absolutes, and you can help them out. So that's my mission now.
You certainly can with the right information. And, Bill, I want to thank you for plugging in today. Let's do this again. Maybe we'll do some QB game analysis after the Wolfpack v. Tar Heels game this year.
That would be great.
Coaches, let me put in a plug for Bill. There's a lot of coaches out there that know the game of football. There's fewer that know the mechanics of the motions, and there's fewer still who know the physiology of the game. Bill Renner has a master's degree in exercise physiology from Georgia Tech, and in working with Bill over the last month and getting his platform set up on PowerChalk, helping him establish his page, I've been amazed at the depth of the workouts behind the drills. So, you know, we're talking about motion here, and we're talking about technique, but really, like Bill said earlier, this is about drills that lead up to the ability to perform that motion. Bill's got a keen appreciation for the mechanics, and then knowing that it's, you know, the proper mechanics is not enough. You've got to have the core, the strength, the stamina to be in the game. So Bill builds these skills from the ground up. Like I said earlier, you can connect with Bill at BillRennerFootball.com or at PowerChalk.com/BillRenner. Bill, thanks again for joining us. Coaches, thanks for tuning in. Look for this and past sessions at youtube.com/PowerChalk. Thanks again. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Chaz.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.